Welcome to Mac and Bleu, the cutting-edge podcast for the nation's builders, merging the realms of construction with exciting advancements in technology. Join us on a thrilling journey where we delve into the dynamic world of blockchain, AI, the metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, and their transformative impact on the industry. Our engaging discussions span a wide spectrum, covering not only construction, economic development, supply chain, and market segments, but also exploring the vibrant tapestry of diversity within the construction landscape. We shed light on the intersection of local politics and its profound influence on the construction sector, while championing the remarkable contributions of women and minorities in construction. For all things Mac and Bleu, head to www.macandbleu.com, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome again to another episode of Mac and Bleu. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky, CEO and co-founder of Blue Wave. Today, we're lucky enough to have Joe Corcione. I really want to go, Joe Corcione, because I'm not Italian, but I love Italians. He's with Trainual, and I was lucky enough to get exposed to Trainual at a Vistage annual event last year. But I'd seen Chris's books. You guys are kind of really into the business EOS area, a lot of things like that. So it was befitting that we get them on, and luckily Joe agreed to come on, so we get to whip him like a little stepchild today. Joe will give you background, but I'll just kind of give you some context. He also does podcasting, so he'll be very well versed in this and be able to basically, I can just hit autopilot and let him self-guide through. So first of all, welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me on, JJ.
Everyone likes to know more of the personal side, right? So give a little bit about where you grew up, background, all that kind of stuff first.
Yeah, 100%, man. And thanks so much for having me on too. I love talking about this stuff. As entrepreneurs like yourself and then listening in, this is something that I always love to talk about, because I kind of faced the one part, I think, or one big pain point that a lot of entrepreneurs face along their journey, which I'll talk about later. But right. In terms of background, so I grew up in New York in a small town called Somers, New York in Westchester County. So I was just telling JJ before, not upstate, but just north of the city is what we like to call it. Upstate, we get a little offended, but I think it's just a Westchester thing. But that's where I grew up. I went to school there, high school there, and then I went to college at Penn State, studied finance because I originally wanted to go into Wall Street because I just wanted to make a ton of money. That was pretty much the goal at the time. I was like, I just want to make as much money as possible, so let's go on Wall Street. And so I did that, and then I went on Wall Street and I worked at a hedge fund for about a year or so, and got the money and thought it was great, but I found myself just getting super burnt out and just not feeling fulfilled, and that led me to kind of just make a lot of poor decisions in my life, such as drinking and drug abuse and just a bunch of other crazy stuff. So I knew I had to get out of there to save my kind of self. So in order to do that, I basically quit that job, and then I moved out to Appleton, Wisconsin to kind of isolate myself and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I was working at a Fortune 500 company at the time for finance, and just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And I realized at the time I wanted to be an entrepreneur and wanted to start my own business and everything like that. And, going through a journey of sobriety for myself, and also, being in a place of anxiety and depression, I had helped myself to get out of that place. And so I knew I wanted to start a business helping other people do the same thing. And gratefully enough, I actually got connected with someone who already had a business like that, and they brought me on as a co-founder. And with that, I became a co-owner and I became an entrepreneur. And so packed up all my things in Wisconsin and moved out here to Arizona. And that's where I started my entrepreneurial journey. And I just remember being so excited, right? I'm sure you can relate, JJ, when you first found that company, you get excited, you get the entrepreneurial vision, I'm going to be my own boss, yes. And
you're nervous as shit and excited as hell all in the same way.
Right. But it's that nervousness that's so energizing.
Well,
right?
How many years have you been here now?
I've been in Arizona. It'll be 4 years in May. So okay. 4 years in May. So relatively recent, which is super cool. But I love it here. I'm never moving back. It is the best here.
It grows on you.
It does. It does. Yeah. I love it here. Being in the cold, from the Midwest, it's can't beat the warmer winters over here. But anyways, I remember just getting so excited, and then fast forward to 6 months. On the business wise, we were doing great. We basically grew our top line by 300%. We doubled our client base. We expanded our new revenue and products. But instead of feeling like this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like this is amazing, I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, I was working 20 hours a day, I didn't know how like I could really manage my own personal life, things were falling apart there, and I was like, what the heck, I thought like being your own boss was gonna mean freedom, and instead I just not only bought myself another job, but I essentially created like 2 jobs in one. And so I kind of like thought through what are the solutions to kind of help fix that, and Trainual was a solution, and I got so excited on the platform, which we can talk about in the vision, that
which we will.
But I sold my stake in the company and worked to Trainual because I thought like the mission was just so great, and that's where I've been since.
You went fast through that.
Yeah.
And that's good. But for the audience sake, slow that down and go back. What was the connection? So you met your current guy, your current partners now through your old company? Is that how the transition went?
So interestingly enough, so as you mentioned, I've been in the podcasting space for a while, and I had a podcast at the time. And so I had the co-founder of Trainual, his name's Jonathan, on my podcast like back then, because he also did a lot of work in the outdoor space and like outdoor content creation, which is something I was passionate about. So that's where we got connected. And that was even before I started or went in on this business together. We had that connection in there. Now, what happened was why I was looking at Trainual was because I saw myself in the position. This is what I encourage any entrepreneur to do if they're in the same kind of space as me. Once you find that your plate is so full that, you know, you're working these crazy hours, you're not spending time with your family, you're being overly stressed, like that's the sign that you need to stop working in the business and you need to think about how can I work on the business. And so I needed to get into that mode where I was like, how can I essentially clone myself so that I don't need to be doing all the day-to-day minutia. I can focus on the things that are really going to move the business forward.
I've seen a sexy avatar and digital twin. It's actually pretty good.
Right, exactly. Yes, with AI, I think it's possible nowadays. Unfortunately, AI wasn't there at that time, but I was doing some reading and research, and one thing that I saw was like, you need to document your process. I read the book E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, right?
Great
and he
book.
talks about all that stuff, right? Documenting your processes, everything like that. And so I was like, all right, well, I need to look on someone to document my process, right? And Trainual was one of the tools onto that. Now, what's interesting though, even before looking into Trainual, I fell into the trap of, instead of documenting, I was like, I just need to hire some people to take this off my plate. So you know what I did? I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to hire some salespeople because I was on the phones all day doing all these calls. And I said, okay, let me hire some salespeople to take all this stuff. I hired the salesperson. They were great, super talented, track record beyond belief. Like their close rate was unbelievable at these other companies. And I was like, this is my ticket out. We're going to do this. This is going to be amazing. Hired that person on and they go, okay, great, Joe. Like, what do I do first day? And I said, what do you mean? What do you do? Go out and sell. Like, you know what to do. Like, you got this, man. They're like, well, like, what do I say? Like, I'm like, trust yourself. You got this. You're talented. Go get them. And I remember going back to my desk. I was like, yes, like, it's great. Like, they're going to take care of this. 1 week goes by, 0 sales. And I'm like, like, what the heck? So I have a meeting with them and I just check in and say, hey, just checking in, how are things going? They're like, well, like, I don't know. I just really kind of confused on what to say. I don't really know what to do. Like, I'm not sure. And I say, listen, I know you're just getting new. You're probably nervous, probably a new job. Like, you're talented. You're going to figure it out. You got this. Like, don't worry. Pat them on the back. You're a rock star. Great. Go get them and send them out there. Another week goes by. 1 or 2 sales, maybe out of like 20 calls, right? So very, very low. And so now I'm starting to think like, oh man, did I make the wrong hire? Did I like make the wrong choice here? Like what did I do? So came up and said, hey, I'm just concerned about your performance. And he's like, well, listen, like I just don't know what to do is what he's saying. He's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know like what I'm supposed to say on these calls. And I say, well, like, listen, you're a talented salesperson. Like I know you can figure this out. Let's take it another week and see how it is. Now, another week went by. They put in their notice that they're going to leave. And I was like, you know what? Maybe just wasn't the right fit for them. Now, that's not where it ends. I actually hired on 2 more salespeople with an identical thing happened. Like, right, they came on, they weren't performing, and then they left, or I either let them go because I thought it wasn't the person. But then when I started to read Michael Gerber's book, that's when I realized I need to actually document my process, and that's what led me to, look into Trainual to do that.
You were the problem, not them.
Exactly, and I think that's a big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is like they hire people and they trust their talents and skills so much that they just throw them to the wolves, but they don't really know what to do. And then they chalk it up to, oh, this was a bad employee or oh, this was a bad person, when the reality, you either just have bad documentation or bad training protocols when, having those in place can really bring out their talent to not only the max, but have you do the things consistently. And that's what Trainual does and why I looked into them and why I got so stoked on the mission because I was like, this is incredible. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Now you did a great job of setting the table.
Yeah, of course.
Now the audience go, oh, now I get Joe. Okay. I
like to like lay the story and then I was like, okay, like they'll cherry pick the parts we want to go deep on and then we go deep in. Yeah.
All right. So now jump in. And again, get a little granular here, if you will. Explain the company, how it started, and then explain what the hell you guys do.
Yeah, 100%.
And then we can get into the fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Trainual, right? So if we think about the name, right, we were talking about before, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, but
I have a hard time saying it. Trainual.
Yeah, Trainual. Yeah, it takes some used to. Like, and listen, you said it right in the first time too. Like, there's some people, you hear some weird things, triannual, triangular, like just like all this stuff. But Trainual, what it is, it's 2 words in one: training and manual in one. And that's essentially what we do. We help businesses train and onboard new employees so that they can get up to speed as soon as possible. But it's also meant to be the manual for the company, right? So even if someone is done training and they're a seasoned employee, you need to have a knowledge repository or a manual to be able to reference the things to do your job, processes to cover if people are out, and what we call is your business playbook, right?
Okay.
We believe every business needs a playbook, right? Every business needs a playbook, because when you have a playbook, you're able to hand it off to your new employees and to do the things that you did consistently to get to where you want to be, so that you can scale that when you're hiring on new people. Now, with the playbook, conceptually, there's 4 things that our founder and CEO, Chris Ronzio, really outlines that must be in a playbook. Number 1, your company information. This is your mission, vision, values, products and services. If your company isn't on board with that, then nothing else matters, because they can execute the process, but if they're not aligned with your vision, your mission, your culture, then that's going to be a problem, right?
Can I interrupt you, Joe? Okay, so, you can imagine this, the audience on Mac and Blue is, they're intrigued by this, but I think one of the biggest things here is you get that counterculture, if you will, of going, Joe, I'm so effing sick of a mission vision statement.
Yes.
How do I make it real and it's not bullshit?
Yes.
So take a pause and tell everyone how do you circumvent that roadblock that 90% of companies, I'm like, we're so sick of elevator speeches that aren't true to who we are.
Yeah, 100%.
So again, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
This is such a hot topic for everyone, because it's always the first thing companies are supposed to do, and yet they hate it, so they don't go any further, right?
Right.
So how do you guys help companies get over that hump?
Yeah, and JJ, I love that you brought that up, because I think it's become so cliche nowadays, and people, why they don't trust it is because companies usually do it the wrong way. They do it because they think it's a checkbox. They do it because they think they have to have it, and therefore the mission and the vision that they do lay out is just this crummy like statement that doesn't get anyone riled up.
AI created?
Yeah, AI created. Someone types in a chat GPT, write me a mission statement on, how to, wash windows or something like that, right?
Barf and barf.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to put a lot of heart into it. And with that heart, what I suggest doing all the time is getting your whole leadership together and literally take not just an hour or 2 hours to really flesh this out, take like a whole day to really go and get clear on that vision. Our company leadership at Trainual, what they did, they went on one of their retreats and they went through and they spent the whole weekend really ideating on who are the people they're trying to serve, what's the mission that they're trying to accomplish, and ultimately what's going to get everybody excited to get to go for that thing. Cool. And they wrote down all these things on the whiteboard and jammed and collaborated and did all these things. But again, it wasn't for 1 or 2 hours. It was like multiple days. And that's what it really takes, because once you get that multiple day kind of interaction to really get the heart and soul into it, then you finally get something that everybody is involved and passionate about, and it's real. Because usually the reason why people think it's BS is because usually it's spent only 1 or 2 hours. How can you get excited about a vision that you're trying to hit over a 5-year mark that was developed in 2 hours, right? It needs to have a lot of time to develop those things. You need to get super clear. So you get your vision aligned with your team, you get them in a room for multiple days, flesh that out, and really come up with something that's not only going to motivate your leadership team, but your employees, right? What's going to motivate the employees? And so I think that's going to be the big thing. Don't just be the one-man founder show and be like, I'm the founder, this is my vision. Get your team involved in it as well, because they're building this mission with you, and you need them to be just as excited about the mission and vision as you are as well.
Okay, so I cut you off on 1. What was 2? You said back to Chris's points.
Oh, yeah, back to Chris's points. Yes, on the playbook.
Sorry, and if there was more of 1, keep going on number 1.
No,
I cut you off.
No, yeah, like I said, mission, vision,
company,
values, all that kind of stuff. So that's the company. Next is the policies. So these are the rules inside the business, right? Code of conduct. Can you wear jeans to work? What are the working hours? What's our parental leave policies, right? One of my favorite quotes of all time from my favorite show, Seinfeld, is Cosmo Kramer, without rules, there's chaos. And so the same thing goes true with your business. You need to have those policies in there. The next is your people information, right? Who's who in the business? Who's responsible for for what? Who reports to who? What's the structure of your business? All of your people information have to be documented as well, because if you have a new hire that's, in charge of, the accounting, and they need to figure out who's in charge of, processing the invoices or handing that off, they can just look it up easily and say, oh, Joe is involved in this, so I'm going to go and see him, as opposed to just asking, are you in charge of this? Are you in charge of this? Are you in charge of this? You need to have all your roles and responsibilities documented. And then lastly, kind of talking about what I was talking about with the sales team member that I was talking about, you need to have your processes documented. These are the how-tos, your sales scripts, how to close the deal, how to manage the sales pipeline, right? Anything that's a how-to in the business is on there as well. And so you have all those things documented, creates your playbook. Now, where Trainual comes in, we can help you document those things. We have content creation things, but at the same time too, we also allow you to put it into a system that's easily delegatable, right? Because you can document anything that you want, but if you can't effectively delegate it out to your employees, then what's the point, right? And usually the way that a lot of people go about this is Google Drive, Google Docs, any of those free document things. Now, those can be great for writing things down. The problem with that, though, is a few different things, right? Like, JJ, let me ask you this question. Have you ever been in a Google Drive looking for one single document and it's taken you 5-10 minutes and you're just like, where the heck is this document? I have no idea where it is, right?
All the time.
Exactly. And I bet everybody watching and listening has probably felt that as well, right? Think about your new employee who's trying to find the process to do their job.
Yeah, and I know where it should be.
Right, exactly, 100%. So they have no idea where it should be. It's their first day on the job. They're worrying where the heck to do this. Then they're asking you, who's on an important call in a few minutes that you have to be on. Now you're taking time away from the business. Now you're looped in.
And they feel bad.
And they feel bad, and then they don't ask, and then they're sitting on their hands because they're waiting on you because you're in a... So see how even just 5 to 10 minutes to find something can lead to a lot of chaos? Yeah. Trainual gives it an easy place where you can just open it up, search in the search bar, boom, 1 second, it's right there. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to assign all this content to this person so that they can easily navigate it inside the playbook and pull it up on there as well. So that is one thing we want to do, is we want to make information easily accessible. But on top of that as well, another problem with Google Drive and Google Docs to have a playbook, right? Let's just say you were hiring me as an employee, right? You hire me as an employee, right? Of course you want me to read the documentation, but what do you really want me to do? You want me to understand it, right? You want me to execute on it. Now, with Google Drive and Google Docs, you send it over to them, and then it's kind of just Scout's honor. Did they go through it, right? With Trainual, what you can do is you can actually test and track and report on people not only going through the information, but making sure they understand it, right? I think all the time there's a funny meme that I saw the other day, and I think there's a bunch of variations from it, but it's a person behind a TV, and they're saying online training program, and they're basically just clicking through all the modules like that, right? Now, it's a funny Family Guy, that's the thing where I saw it, but she just skips everything, and then at the end, it shows a test by Peter Griffin, and he's like, okay, tell me in detail what you would do in this situation where you're doing X, Y, and Z, and then she goes, oh, and then she goes back and actually starts to watch the information, right? So to prevent people from just skimming through your training, because guess what? If they're a high performer, they probably will because they think that they're going to be able to do the job well. You need to make sure that they're actually ready to be deployed out there so they can get the consistent results. So we build in those tests and quizzes and also accountability to make sure they're going through it and understanding the information, because knowledge isn't power. Application is power. And with Trainual, you can be able to test and track and report those things as well, which is super, super cool.
So let's take a moment on that one. As you were describing that, I was thinking that I would say easily 90% of the people will just do that.
Yeah.
Because they don't care.
Right.
All right. So what's the secret sauce, Joe?
Yeah.
How have you guys been able to develop to slow down the retention piece? Because that's what we as employers want out of it. Mm-hmm. But yet we're not even willing to use our own. I mean, I'll be honest. I won't watch my own training videos. Right. So here I am, juxtaposed, or call me a whatever, like a hypocrite, because I won't even do my own company policy stuff. How have you guys been able to get over that hump?
Yeah, great question. And so it's funny that you mentioned this too, because literally right before I came in, I saw a message that came through our Slack that is going to lead to this strategy that we have on here. So what it is you want to hold your employees accountable and measurable to their completion score on their training. So inside of Trainual, every single employee gets a completion percentage number, and that is going to show how much of their content that they've actually completed through Trainual itself. Okay. So when I go into a meeting with my boss, right, we're going to be sitting down and we're going to be looking at my Trainual content, content. If it's below 100%, that's a problem. And that's going to be dinged against like my performance and things like that too. So, and even so, the message that I was talking about, I literally got one saying, hey, it's a good week to go through your Trainual content. Like we're being like, held accountable to that, to have that on there. So what I always suggest is like when you have a new employee, make it a part of their 30, 60, 90-day plan to be 100% in Trainual and to get 100% test completion scores, and use that as a KPI for metrics on their performance as well. Because generally when a person wants to perform well in a job, which if you hire someone who's in good faith, they will 100% want to do that, you want to make their performance tied to if they're going through the content. So don't just make it something that they have to do, make it something that they're measured against as a part of their job. And then that's going to make it held accountable to actually go through and understand it. And then you can make those test scores measurable as well, so that they can make sure that they're actually studying the information. They know it's important, because here's the reality. Retention comes in when you know that the information you're consuming is going to be used in the future.
Agreed.
Right? If you just sit there and listen to something and someone says, oh yeah, like this, but you're never going to use it, you're not going to retain it. But in your head, like think about it, like whenever you needed the answer to something quick, you searched it up on Google and saw that, you're likely more to remember that than just like a passive documentary that you see on the TV that, you're not using anything.
So you hit on another thing. And again, I'm asking you these questions like I want to be the audience. Okay, so Joe, with that, have you made this all video versus reading, so that, because again, let's be honest with society now. I'm not going to read. I want instant. Yeah. So is most of it turned into video? Yeah. Or even augmented reality, if you will? Are we getting to that yet?
Augmented reality is on our vision for sure. Like we want to definitely get into that.
Just think about it. Yeah. Listen, I'm a realist. I know that for a new hire and probably now or a year, a person should be able to go in, put on the goggles, and literally just go through the training, right? Yeah. Be more immersive, right? Because if I want the best, I'm going to have to provide a catalyst or a platform to attract and retain the best. Think of someone coming out of that going, man, that was a fun training because I just didn't have to regurgitate information. I was interactive with it, those kind of things. Yeah. So maybe I'm ahead of myself with saying this, but I don't know how in a society that we're in right now that we as a collective whole of entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to do that. Yeah. I think we had, let me give a shout out. I think Rami Kala, who's been on here, he is Point in Time Studios. He's done that with the Gila River Indian Reservation. I think they do a bunch of that for their training at their casinos. Oh, wow. And I heard it's like unbelievable. Yeah. As far as how much it elevated their training, or kind of similarly to what you guys do. Yeah, 100%. And I've seen this too in the trades, like some plumbing conferences, they'll literally have like the VR goggles where they're like fixing a pipe or something. So it's super cool. Well, I should have said VR instead of AR, sorry. VR, AR, because
it's
AR
all too.
Kind of blending anyway.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like VR, AR, AI, like there's just all these acronyms. But yeah, so we are looking and expanding. We actually have a labs team inside of Trainual too, who's like all focused on like all that crazy stuff. So everything is coming into play for sure. And so, go ahead. No, keep going, because I have another question. Yeah. So like to your like question, how do you adapt to people who want video and text and everything like that? So we've found that like, people learn in their own ways. So whether it's video or whether it's text or whether it's pictures, like you can have all those things inside of Trainual to make it applicable to every single style of learning. So you can have a video walking through the process inside of Trainual. You can even click record and start talking through it if people listen to things better, right? You can have that on there as well. And then you can also have text underneath it too. And the cool thing is like we have, to speak about the times, we have an AI text generator. So you could say, hey, write me a sales process for a window washing company that targets, commercial buildings in the Phoenix area, right? It'll go out and spit it out. And so it saves you time. So you can just go through and, remap it out. And then you can create a video of you talking through your sales process, and boom, you not only have a well built out process, but you have all different types of media that really speak to people where they're at in terms of how they consume knowledge best. Okay.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
let me go back, because another thing that we've talked about on this podcast was, and forgive me if I'm taking you down a hole that isn't applicable, but I think it is with what you guys have for software and a product service that you provide for the business world. If I take that and combine it with, I'm going to call it the human resource onboarding process. So I'm going to give you an example. As I see more and more companies taking behavioral testing, and so they'll have a job description, right?
Yeah.
Behavioral test, get that person, okay, pass.
Right.
How does that data then go into a specific training module with you guys? You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, how is this not just one size fits all, where you can match it to where, not to get socioeconomic or a hierarchy, but, C-suite versus mid-manager versus frontline versus, whatever. Is that customization available in your platform?
Yeah, so you can totally make different what we call groups inside of Trainual based on where they're at
Groups,
in terms of that. So, and we do it on different levels. So you can do it on the role specific level. So think sales associate, think HR manager, think CMO, right? Like all the roles in the business. But then you can also do departmental stuff. So marketing, sales, customer experience, or you can even do location. So you can do like Glendale office or Phoenix office or things like that. And what you can do is you can say, hey, for this specific role or group or whatever you're kind of setting it up, they're going to need all this kind of content to be able to do their roles correctly. So for example, if I'm hiring in a new sales rep on my team, right? Let's translate to Joe, and let's plop Trainual in Joe's hand when he was struggling and not doing a great job hiring sales reps, right? What I would have done if I had Trainual at the time is I would have created a role called sales associate inside of Trainual. I would have said, hey, here are all of the things that sales associate needs to be successful in their job, so that I can make sure that when they get on the phones, they're going to be closing deals, right? So then all of a sudden I have all that stuff on there. So then all I need to do with one click of a button, let's just say I'm hiring, Josephine, I don't know, my
Your alter ego.
My alter ego, right? Who is a female, right? So we're bringing her in, right? All I need to do is saying, okay, Josephine is now a member of our team, tag her with the role of sales associate. Now, when she logs into Trainual, guess what? She's going to log in and she's going to see all the content she needs to be in order of training order that we set in there. And we have that on there. So no more trying to grab this link and this link and this link and this link.
See.
Now it's all in there as well. And if you know that your salespeople are more visual, if you know that they're more audio, if you know they're more kinesthetic, you can always morph all that content and that style into the way where it's going to hit every single person in there. So you can include the same stuff in the video and the text, but as long as they're consuming the information that you need to know, if you have the test, they should be able to nail it. And ultimately, you get everyone where they're at as well too. So that is how we make onboarding and training so much easier, no matter where they're at in terms of, C-suite, high-level leadership, or if they're an entry-level job or an internship, we still want to make it easy to onboard that person ASAP in an organized manner, because here's the reality, right? Your onboarding and training process is crucial, because first impressions matter, not just on first dates, but also on the first day on the job. And if you come in, right, and you bring in your new hire and everything's chaos, there's links here, they're swiping through the Google Drive, what's their first impression? This is stressful. And then that's going to be the tone that you set at the company. Do you want that, or do you want, whoa, this is everything I need to do. Here's a clear roadmap. Here's everything I need to access in one place. This is great. This is going to be awesome. That's the first impression you want. That leads to higher retention and ultimately better
performance
business.
And results.
Yeah.
And la la la. Cool. Good job. Now I can't remember where we should go with this next. What if you gave a testimonial without mentioning a company name? Think about an organization that you guys maybe have gone into recently where they were a hot mess, and the audience can relate, where you tell a story about how you changed. That won't give away a company name or any proprietary secrets. Could you do that?
Yep, 100%, 100%. So I know one company, they're open up different car wash locations, right?
Okay.
Open up different car wash locations. And one of their biggest problems was that they had two really big problems. Number one, when they were opening up locations, they were having struggles of getting that location to be as consistent as their original location when they were coming on board, right?
Pretty much every business could say that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Every business can say that. And there is going to be nuances between location to location, but think about a franchise, right?
Okay.
So one of the things in Michael Gerber's book that blew my mind was that, like, if you know, like, I don't know the exact statistic of the refresher, but I'm just ballparking statistics, but everyone knows the small business one where it's like, you know, in the first year of business, like 9 out of 10 small businesses are going to fail, right? And then it gets even worse down the line. Now, if franchisees have like a 90% success rate in their first year, or 95, like something crazy high like that. So it's like, wow, like what is the difference between the two? The difference is the documentation, right? Because they're literally just handing over a playbook to that location to run that business. So what you need to do is make your business franchisable without actually making it a franchise, right? You don't have to go that route, but that's kind of like the concept. That when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So going back to this location, they didn't have like a standard operating manual to be able to open up each of their locations. So that was one thing. And even if they did have documentation, it was all over the place, right? They had some in Dropbox, they had some in SharePoint, they had some in Google Drive, they had some in paper manuals. So it was just everywhere and just unorganized. So there was chaos in there. But not only that, they couldn't retain the new hires that were coming on board. Why? Because they felt like they didn't have anything to really be successful in their job. And they were like, I feel like I'm just winging this, and then I'm getting dinged for bad performance, and I just feel like I'm being not set up for success. One of the biggest reasons why people actually turn over in a business reported is because of poor onboarding process and no clear direction on actually how to be successful in their job. People want to be set up for success. They want to know what it means to be successful, and they want to feel like they have the tools they need to succeed. And that starts with having things written down on how to actually be successful. So this company facing all this stuff, struggling new location coming up, even though they had a boom in, first location, but they struggled to open up this second location. They then went in, implemented Trainual, was able to document their whole operations playbook into one specific format inside of Trainual, delegated it out to all their new employees, rolled it out, and also their current employees as well. And they not only saw their new location start to thrive because now it is more in alignment with that first location, but they also saw retention jump up like crazy. And so like they saw their retention jump up by like 200 or 300%, which was just incredible. And they were seeing like people losing like once every 2 months or something like that. They would go 4 or 5 months without people kind of turning over at that point, even at low level kind of teenage jobs, you know, where they're just kind of in there for the cash and stuff like that. But now they didn't have to worry about retraining people. They didn't have to worry about keeping them, you know, coming in and out of the door. They were able to have more predictive labor cycles in their business and ultimately build a culture around a car wash company that people were excited to be at, right? So that was a success story that we've seen, and now the car wash is opening up more locations in their area. They're successful as ever. They're having like team retreats. It's just a cool like kind of transformation to see.
It's hard to quantify this, but try to qualify it, Joe. You said something that I think was really important. Through the totality of that, how would you describe what it did to the culture of that organization?
Yep, 100%.
No, but how?
Yeah.
I mean, but what did it, like, did you personally work with that client?
You don't
have to say yes or no, yeah.
Well, my role at Trainual, just to kind of like set the table. So I work with partners who get their clients on board with Trainual. So in tandem, this person like basically helped to implement Trainual, and I was learning the story throughout that. So
okay. You got it.
Yeah.
But I guess I was like, did you get direct feedback from that ownership group or anything saying, hey, Trainual, you wouldn't believe what this did to our culture? That's what I'm trying to look at, like try to, and if so, what were those comments like?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I got those comments too, for sure, where people are actually excited to go through the training. People actually are excited to be a part of this team, right? It's no longer seen as a job, it's seen as a team. That was actually the direct quote that I heard. And I thought that was so awesome. And ever since I heard that, I actually came up with a statement to say like, you know, don't just hire employees, hire team members. And it's like, what's the difference between that, right? An employee is someone who's there, you know, for a check, like they're there just to kind of clock in, clock out, which, you know, in some cases you're going to get that every once in a while. But in order to really make a great culture, you need team members, people who are part of a team, a larger vision, a larger mission. And so with them, they were able to document their culture, their vision, their mission, their values, all those things on there as well to get everybody excited about the things that they were doing. It was no longer about washing cars. It was more about making people excited about, you know, bringing their car out to that date night to have the valet guy go, wow, nice car, man. It was more so about making people feel good and getting people on the same page, but you can't do that if you don't have that documented. So that's number one. But number two, they made their training actually fun. One of of the coolest things, I saw one of their training, right? So they talk about like how they can't have, a certain size of their nails, right? So like they need to keep their nails kind of shaved down.
Okay.
So on like there, they would put like a video of like Wolverine just totally like tearing up a car. And they were like, this is what happens when you don't have shaved nails down. And people get a laugh out of it. They find it funny.
But they remember it.
Right? So you make it memorable. So people are actually excited and they're like, oh, this is the culture of the company. It's fun. It's lighthearted. It's not like this, you have to be in by work at 9 a.m. and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh no, we like to have fun around here. So incorporating those things about training is great too. And so we've gotten a lot of comments on that as well. And then I think another big just improvement too is like they've gotten people in the mindset of documenting things down, right? So I think that is one of the biggest things for culture too, because what happens is when people are more inclined to write something down, you not only rent the salaries of the person, you own it. And let me explain that for a second, right? Because a lot of the times if you don't have that person's processes or knowledge written down, you're renting their salary. You're not owning their salary, because guess what? If they leave, you know what goes with it? The information. The IP.
Yeah.
And you want to build wealth, so you want to own it. So therefore, if you have it written down on a piece of paper, even if they leave, boom, you still have it here. You're not guessing it. You can just bring someone on and carry out that same process.
If you say nothing else today, that's a big one.
That's a big one. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guilty. I think everyone's guilty of, you take it for granted if you don't extract the information.
Right.
And memorialize it somehow.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest kind of pushbacks that people will get to that is there are going to be some employees who are like, I'm not writing this down because if I write it down, then you can easily fire me. Like it happens. Like I've heard it happen with some companies, but here's the thing too.
If you build the right culture, and like I said, if you're into the ethos of what you guys are trying to do as an organization, okay. Yeah. 1%, 2%, 3%, fine. Yeah. But you're beating the odds. You're going to help beat the odds of that being a consistent pattern. Agreed?
Yep. 100%. Yeah. And even if that person, let's just say, is like that, you know what you say to them? You say, hey, listen, if you write this down, this actually leads to better growth opportunities for you, because you can get out of the stuff that you don't like to do day to day. And if you keep performing, we can actually take this documentation and boom, we can bump you up. Now you're doing the thing that you love. You're getting paid more. You're making better impact. And guess what? Now you have someone else doing some of the stuff that you don't like to do. Boom. Like everybody can benefit from documentation. It's just a matter of explaining it and make it a part of the culture. And that's where you not only get a culture around documentation, but you get a culture around a thriving business that scales.
Let's take a little tangent. Kendall, time's not working. So how much time do I got?
You have about 25.
Okay. Just want to check in. Sorry, audience. So you got to do a time check. Where was I going to go with this? Oh, let's go back to the organization itself.
Yeah.
Based here, right? In Arizona?
Our Trainual, yes. Yep. So we're based in Tempe, Arizona.
Okay.
Yep.
And if you were to give a breakdown of your success with the different client base right now, the different verticals, as far as, could you just give kind of an idea to the audience of the different industries that you've had large success in?
Yeah, no, 100%. So the cool thing is, I mean, we're industry agnostic. We work with any industry, right? Because we believe every business needs a playbook, right?
Which it does.
Yeah, exactly. And we work with every industry. We work with tech. We work with financial services. We even have one of our top customers work in pig farming. Like, how crazy is that? So we get some like pretty nutty businesses, but there are some businesses that are more inclined to this work just because, you know, it's just the nature of their specific business. So things that really, really work well, like, and again, if you're any business that works well, but where we've seen a lot of success are law firms, real estate, financial services offices. So think like insurance or financial planning or anything like that. Dental offices are a big one too, or like PT offices. Think about like when, you know, people are opening up different locations, or if you have like sales associates or people who are interacting with clients, you really want that consistent experience. So a lot of these service-based businesses do see a lot of benefits into using Trainual as well. So I think a lot of those service-based businesses are usually getting a lot of value out of Trainual, but again, it works with pretty much any industry.
What about us? What about trades and contractors and things like that? Have you had it?
Yep.
Have we been a part of your portfolio?
Yep, 100%. Okay. So trades are actually also up there in our top 5 industries as well. Okay. So we work tons with plumbing, electric, HVAC businesses. Those are great too, because guess what? What we can also do is you can have the app on your phone. Mm-hmm. So it's super great. Like, let's just say I'm a new technician, right? And I'm going to someone's house and I'm actually trying to fix a certain leak, but this is a new leak. I haven't seen this one before. Oh my gosh, what do? I can just pull out my phone, look it up in Trainual, see the video of someone fixing it and go, oh great, this is what I need to do here. Boom, we have that on there as well. So trades are also also big for that reason as well. Again, another service-based business. So we usually see a lot of awesome stuff in trades. And the cool thing is inside the application, we have HVAC, plumbing, all those templates for specific processes in those businesses. So if you don't have that documented, we can give you the starting point and you just fill in the blanks in there. Take
that, make it bilingual, and do anything with it. I mean, it's limitless as far as the potential.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Go back to, I know I keep going here, but I think there's so many business owners that want to make this connection, Joe, and that is, how does Trainual work so well with either existing or do you guys help bring HR solutions to the table as well? Because I can see wherever I'm being the devil's advocate here, going, Joe, I love what I'm hearing. I'd love to sign up with you, but I look at it as this is a standalone, and I got HR over here. Yeah, and either my HR manager is going to be, scared of this, or I don't have anything, and then I'm going to have to hire someone else. So give the audience that solution of what you guys do when you reach that encumbrance with the client base out there.
Yeah, 100%. So we know that like training and onboarding and all this information is a big part of the HR process. So with Trainual, we do have a lot of native HRIS integrations inside of Trainual, which kind of make it easy as well. So just to kind of like really quickly just say like what Trainual isn't, because like we get always asked like, what is Trainual and what is it not? So I'll start with what is it not? So first of all, it's not a task management system. So a little bit out of the HR, but like still task management is important. So think of like we love Asana. We use it at Trainual.
There you go.
But like, there's a bunch of other ones out there as well, Trello, Monday.com, right? A lot of those different things. But those are the to-dos in the business. And the way that we always distinguish Trainual from that is Trainual is the how-tos, but a task management's your to-dos, right? So you might have a checklist in Asana that you're checking off, but in order to know how to do those specific tasks, those would be inside of Trainual.
That was the best thing you said right there. It's the how-tos.
It's the how-tos, right? And so those things can also talk to each other. We run on Zapier as well, so you can make like different integrations that aren't native as well. And so that's where the task management. So we're not that. The second thing is we're not like a payroll or benefits or any of that kind of stuff, right? So we get asked all the time, oh, can you put like W-2s in there? Can you put tax forms? Can you put all those things? You can, but it's not the right use for it, right? You want to have an HRIS system that's going to be able to handle all those things. And we actually have native integrations with different applications like that. So we have native integrations with Bamboo HR, JustWorks, QuickBooks, a lot of those things, to name a few. We have a lot of those HRIS systems where you can put those in automatically, ultimately to have those two things talk to each other. So instead of adding them in one system and adding them in another system, you just click one button and then those two things talk to each other and they can import the users on there as well. So that's another thing that we aren't. The other thing that we aren't as well is file storage. So granted, right, you can put all your documents inside of Trainual, but in terms of like file storage of like, I need to put my video in here, or I need to just like, put all this data into one place, Trainual is not necessarily optimized for it. It's more meant for documents that you're going to be able to reference to do your job or to understand how someone does a job or understand how to do things. File storage, you can leave that to Google Drive or something like that. So I know I was knocking on Google Drive big time earlier on, and Google Drive is great for storage. It is awful for training and onboarding and playbook creation. So those are the things we aren't. So to answer your question fully, we have integrations with HRIS systems that make everything talk to each other. And then even if we don't have a native integration, likely you can find it on Zapier and actually create custom integrations to really have your systems talk to each other in a way that works best for your business.
You did a good job. Thanks for taking my question, and you're a good listener. I'm impressed.
I've been podcasting too. I know it's a good skill to be a good listener.
Okay, let's go down to great success that you've had. Now let me pose you with, in the last X amount of, let's just take this kind of ambiguous time frame. Let's say the last year. What has your client base or what has the customer base challenged you guys with as an organization and with a platform of next level? Like what's Trainual 3.0 or 4.0 or wherever you guys are in the evolution of what you're offering? Yeah,
great question. So we are constantly evolution. Like we've since the start of Trainual, we've kind of had the same thing. It's funny too, because I was chatting
with Layla.
Chatting with her out there, and I was telling her about Trainual, and I remember when I said like, oh, what Trainual is, I was like, oh, it's all your documents and policies and procedures in one place, and she goes, that sounds like a lot of work, right? That's the thing that we hear a lot, right? Because think about it, if you're a business and you don't have your process documented, even if your business is simple, you have so many processes. There's so much, right? And think about it when you're like, oh, I need to document my process. oh, I need to document my process. And you start to realize how big that scope is. So for us, our goal and what we've been continuing to develop is to create the playbook that writes itself.
Yep.
And so that way we don't want you to have to spend all the time writing it. So as I mentioned before, we have an AI integration where we can actually write those processes for you and make it easy. We have tons of templates inside the application, also industry-specific templates, dental, plumbing, all those, just to name a few, real estate, where you can actually just put those into the business and then just edit it slightly to really be something that's going to be easier for that as well. And then we also have integrations where you can have your screen recorded and basically click around on the process, and it comes up with a written process with screenshots complete and everything like that. So our goal is like, how do we make the documentation process easier? And those are all the things that we're doing to really make eventually the playbook to write itself. It's funny, when Chris and I give a talk, there's it's called Get Your Business Out of Your Brain. That's the talk that Chris wrote it, and then I kind of tweaked it for my own stuff. So I got to trademark Chris on that. But the first slide that we use,
You get the royalties though, right?
well, I mean, he gets a cut of them, but on the first slide,
Chris, it's okay.
Exactly. Yes, I'll send the check in the mail, Chris. But the first slide is actually a dude who's sitting there, and he's got like this brain helmet with like wires coming out, right? And so, like, honestly, it's a funny thing, but it's like that would be a cool thing to eventually get to, where you can just literally think your process onto the page. And so that's what we want to do as well. And then the next
that's not out of reality. I mean, it's not far-fetched.
Right. It's not far-fetched. So as I mentioned, we have a labs team who's coming up with this crazy stuff as well. But the other thing too, right, I think a big pushback, especially not just on the documentation, but just software setup in general, right? It's a pain in the butt. It takes people like all the time. They're like, I know I need this, but I don't want to set up a new system. Like, oh my gosh. So we actually, over the past year, implemented, funny I use that word, an implementation team inside of Trainual. So what happens is when you pay for an annual subscription on Trainual, you get paired with an implementation specialist. They'll take all the documentation you have, they'll upload it into Trainual, make it look pretty, get your users in there, get them ready for delegation. So they just hand it over to you in a bow and just say, ready to go, here you go. And that way, you don't even have to worry about the setup, making it look pretty or anything. We got that covered off your bat, and all you need to do after that is just simple maintenance, which, by the way, you can tap into your teammates to do, so you don't have to do as the business owner, and therefore, you're off to the races in just a few weeks in terms of Trainual too. So we want to make the business that really, the playbook that writes itself, but at the same time, help business owners, because they're busy and they don't want to spend the time to really set up the application in a way where we can take that off their hands for them.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Bleu, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Bleu to get it done right the first time.
How do you monetize this? In
Yeah.
other words, is it a retainer? Is it a SaaS-based business? How do you monetize yourself with the marketplace?
Yeah, so it's a SaaS-based business. We don't have any contracts, which is super cool. So like we don't want to lock anyone into like multi-year contracts or like anything like that. So it's purely subscription-based, cancel anytime. And we have a few different models. So we have the month-to-month. So if someone wants to pay month-to-month with the flexibility to cancel any time that they want, they can do that. Or they can pay up front for the full year, and that actually gives them a discount as well. Now from that too, every single plan that we have has the same amount of features. However, we do it based on employee size. So depending on how big your company is, if you have 10 employees, it'll cost differently than if you are 100 employees. And the larger you get in terms of company size, the more it scales as well too. And then we have an unlimited plan for companies that are over 100 employees, where they can just go to the moon. And it's great because usually when you get around like the 100 point, you start maybe thinking, oh, I could go to 200, 300, 400. And so we want to be able to facilitate that if that's something that you want to do. But even if you're not thinking about growing and scaling, I think it's still important to have that knowledge repository in case someone leaves, or just to get everybody on the same page as well. So no matter where, and we generally work best with businesses. I also want to say this too. If you're just a solopreneur starting up, we're probably not the best fit right off the bat, right? Because sure, it's great to get ahead to document your processes, but like for us, like you're
into the scalability.
Yeah, we're in the scalability. So we say like right around when you get the time of like 10 to 15 employees, that's where Trainual could start to make sense. Ideally 25 to 100, but 100 and plus, like we work as well. Now where Trainual kind of gets a little out of the scope too, because I also want to say this as well. If you have like 1,000, 2,000 employees, it's not to say we won't work with you. However, for us, we're strictly small business. Like that's what we like to deal with. And so, if it's a larger, that's like where like a more traditional LMS might make a little bit more sense with compliant content and more regulations and all that kind of fun stuff. But for us, we are small business focused for sure.
Here's one. You talked about scalability and what you guys offer. I would pose this question to you. Have you guys, or has your organization, have you actually made a deal better? So let's go to M&A. With everything that's going on in the world, there's so much acquisition, roll-up, private equity, venture capital, all of it. Have you guys actually been involved in something where because a company had Trainual, they got a better multiple or it was a better deal?
Yep, 100%. And there's actually a story on our website too, just all about...
Can you paraphrase it?
Yeah. So basically what the story was, this person was looking to sell their business, right? And they were getting like some quotes, but it was nothing special. They knew that their business was worth a lot more. And then once they actually went down and implemented Trainual and wrote their playbook out, they were able to get a bigger check. Now, the only difference they made was just writing down their information. And why is that, right? Is because people are paying for a business, not just on the business itself, but also the confidence factor of how it's going to be successful. So if you literally give them a guidebook on how to run the dang thing, they're going to pay more for it because guess what? Now they know that with more certainty that they're going to be able to make this a positive investment. And so we saw this company really just go out, document their company in Trainual, and they were able to get a much bigger multiple for their company and sell it off a lot more successfully, just by writing down the information inside of Trainual. And the fact that it was in a system that's easily delegatable, right? Because you can have it all written down, but if it's a mess, then they're going to think you're disorganized, and guess what? Now your multiple is going to lower down a bit. But they say, wow, they have it organized, it's easy to delegate, it's one click. Oh my gosh, like this is going to be simple.
And again, it's scalable.
Right, scalable.
They look at it,
100%.
No, thanks for taking the bait that I threw you on that one.
No, it's a good question.
All right, with the time left, I want to do two things. One, I want to get back to some personal stuff because I think you said some cool things that really resonate with the audience, and we always. At the end of the day, yes, this is an entrepreneurial business forum, but people always relate to personal stuff. So we'll go there in a minute. But I do want to give you and Trainual an opportunity. What else did I not ask you that you want to talk about to let the audience know about what you guys are doing, either now, currently, future, whatever? What didn't we talk about that's important to get the Trainual mission and vision out there?
Yeah, no, 100%. And thank you so much for asking about this. So we are really just hard at work, like coming up with what is the best products for businesses out there. And so for us, I think what makes us very different than other people down the line or other people doing the similar stuff with us is like we actually go through and have product changes that come out based on all the feedback that comes in. So for us, we recently just rolled out like tons of new features, all based on feedback we've been getting on how to organize content and everything like that. And we have a full-fledged product team and engineering team who's hard at work developing all these things. And so for us, like we're always super excited every year. We have like a Playbook or Insider Summit event. And we talk about all the changes that are coming every single year. And without fail, like people go like, we've been asking for this and you actually did it. Like that is awesome. So in terms of like features coming out, there's actually a whole kind of thing that we can kind of go onto on the Insider Summit. It's on YouTube. It's easily accessible. But I think the bigger kind of point that I want to say is like, we take our customers' feedback super seriously. There's even been times where a customer had a piece of feedback and guess who gets on the phone with them? Chris, right? Our CEO, right? Because we genuinely care about the feedback that we get on here as well. So when it comes to making a playbook, of course, we're going to be putting AI and all this fun and flashy stuff. At the same time, we also want to hear from our customers and actually implement it because I think one of the biggest frustrations a lot of people have with software companies is like they give them the feedback and then they just get the thanks. Here's a $5 Amazon gift card, right? Like, no, like people don't want the $5 Amazon gift card. They want the freaking change to be implemented. So that's what we strive to do in Trainual. So all of our stuff is implemented. Yes, 100%.
Do you want to give? Would it be befitting to give Chris a little shout out as far as the books he's written and stuff as well? So you want to go for that?
Yeah, 100%. So Chris Ronzio, I highly suggest everyone follow him. Not even just from Trainual, but I just think he's an awesome role model for like what business owners want to be when they implement Trainual. So I personally look up to Chris a lot because he's not only a successful business owner, but he also has an awesome family. He's got a wife. He's got 2 kids. He spends time with them, and he truly, truly is the one that lives out on the mission, right? Like, he'll go out and he'll unplug for the weekend and be fully with his family. Like, he'll go out and spend the time with them and everything like that. And so he's living that Trainual ethos. So saying like, you can be an entrepreneur running a 100+ person business with multi-million and scaling and still be super successful at the home. And I think a lot of times people think that that's at conjunction, and Chris really lives that out. Now, in his book, The Business Playbook, he talks about why he came to the, point of wanting to not only come up with Trainual, but come up with this concept of a business playbook to be able to not only help other business owners out there, but also help himself, because he ran a video production company and he was finding himself on the road and traveling a lot and just,
like all of us, burnt out.
Exactly, burnt out. Yeah, like me too. Yeah, 100%. So he lays out not only that story, but also the how-tos on how to create your business playbook. And it's not just on Trainual. It's just in general too. So if you're looking for the framework on how to actually create a business playbook, and again, the book's not Trainual specific, it's literally just how to build a playbook. You can go and check out that book. It's called The Business Playbook, how to document and delegate what you can do so you scale beyond you. And Chris also posts tons on social media, LinkedIn. What's super cool, he went super viral earlier this year because we have a thing at Trainual that if you get hired on Trainual in your first month, every employee has the option to leave and get paid $5,000. And no one has taken that yet, but that was a viral thing that went viral. And he's got a lot of cool, like little tidbits that I think are super unique to follow along with.
Yeah, I wanted to give him a shout out. So thanks for championing that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to you and then we'll wrap it up. I want to talk about the ultra running.
Yeah. Happy to.
Okay, give me the story.
Yeah, man.
Well, Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, Reader's Digest. So as I mentioned like earlier in the podcast, like I went just through a phase of my life where I was anxious, I was stressed out, and basically was making a lot of bad choices. I was addicted to drugs. I was drinking a lot of alcohol. I was blacking out every night. And so I kind of came to this point where I remember I moved.
Really? That's a problem?
Yeah. At the time it doesn't seem like it. And that's why we don't change, right?
No, that's a problem.
Right, exactly. Yes, it is a problem. I
guess we have to change the policies around here.
Exactly,
I'm just
right.
kidding, everyone. It was just a joke.
In the playbook, we have to write alcohol policy or substance abuse policy, right?
Yeah. No, keep going. I don't mean to make a mockery of that.
No. It's funny. No, I think it's great. But I moved into my parents' house again, and
you're one of those. Okay.
Yeah, well, because I was lost. I didn't know what the heck to do with my life, and so I moved into my parents' house, and I remember being on the floor of my room, looking up at the ceiling, and be like, if I continue this, I'm going to die before I'm 30 years old, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I need to get healthy, and I'm just going to start running and just see what happens. And I had no athletic background. Like, I didn't play sports in high school. The only sport I played was golf, which arguably is a sport, which I can say because I'm a golfer. But that's all I did. But I had no idea what I was doing. I just went out and ran. And I remember like making it like a quarter of a mile. And I was like, I'm just absolutely winded and this is tough, but there was something cool in that. And that led me to do my first 5K, 10K. And then I just kind of kept asking myself, what else is possible, to the point where, I've done a few 100-mile races, and, I've kind of placed top 20 at some of the most competitive
so you're
races.
Out with like Cam Haynes and David Goggins.
Oh gosh, I don't know Cam and David, but they're big inspirations for me. David's book, Can't Hurt Me, was one of the things that got me.
Have you read any of Cam's stuff?
I read Cam's book. Yeah, I read Cam's book. Yeah. And so it's funny, on my podcast, on the hat that I'm wearing is actually Cam's Keep Hammering hat. Yeah. So I love Cam and David.
I'm
all those
huge
guys.
Fans of those. That's why I wanted to ask, because again, audience, you don't have to be a runner, but to Joe's point, there's something about the ultra running and the ultra marathon and that kind of all those stories. If they don't uplift you, you've got some serious issues.
100%. 100%.
It can get anyone off of their dead ass and top dead center. Agreed?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you don't have to be a runner, or even like Cam Haynes, he's a bow hunter. I'm not a bow hunter, but I think his story is inspiring of endurance. Yeah. And I think like that's one of the biggest reasons why I do it. Of course, it helped me, like, as I've been, I just hit 5 years sober from alcohol and Adderall, which like I was super proud of. But like at the same time, like I want to run far distances to inspire people to chase the goals that they want to do. Right. And I think that's what drives me. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it.
So what has that led to? Other things?
Yeah. So along
I'm curious, like there's got to be, it's more than that. Because at 5 years now, I guarantee it's opened other opportunities for you. So what is that?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started a running podcast a couple years ago. And it's interesting because like I did that at first just to be curious and ask some of the best athletes in the sport, like, what does it take to be an ultra runner? So like I literally was just my own curiosity, and turns out that thousands and thousands of people across the world wanted to know those questions as well. So we run one of the top ranked running shows in the US, the United Kingdom, Australia.
What's
Canada.
the name? Come on, let's give
you. It's called Everyday Ultra. So the
There
whole
you go.
ethos of the show is helping listeners be better endurance athletes every day. And so we have guests on from some of the most accomplished ultra runners in the entire world. And I also share my ultra running journey, and that's been amazing. So it's actually, led me to open up my own coaching business.
I can't believe I haven't seen it before. Now I'm going to start watching.
Oh, no,
Have
it's
you
all
had
good.
that Courtney girl on?
I haven't had Courtney on. No, she's
badass.
she is the greatest ultra runner of all time, in my opinion. And I think a lot of would
better
agree.
than most men,
Oh,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, better than most men. And so it's funny. She's been on a lot of podcasts. So like for me, I've always asked like, how can I make the conversation different, right? Like, and I think that's what I bring to a lot of my shows is like, I always want to make it not just something you've heard on before.
I think we're all challenged that with any podcast,
Yeah.
me included. It's, well, I these guys know it. I'm not going to mention names, but I've had some people lately, hey, can I be on your podcast? I'm like, well, what are you going to talk about?
Right.
And I'm like, that's not interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not going to waste an hour of my time for you to just come do a plug promotion for your company.
Right.
This isn't advertising. It's you give some content to pay it forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
And I'm sure you can relate.
Oh, 100%. I get that all the time. And it's like for me, anytime I'm like, what value can you bring? And even when I'm on podcasts, I don't plug the podcast unless asked. I mean, even like with Trainual too, if you never asked me about Trainual, I probably wouldn't plug Trainual.
Right.
Like I think
I'm like,
which is great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. But I think the biggest thing is like if you want to be on other podcasts, like coming from a podcast host, and I'm sure you can relate in this as well, is come to that person and saying, here's the value that I can bring. I get messages all the time. Hey, big fan of your podcast. I'd love to be on. And I read that, I'm like, okay, how many people did you send this to? You send this to 5 people? Do you even know what the podcast is about? Like someone like reached out to me, they're like, I think they'd be a great fit. And meanwhile, the person never ran a marathon in their life. And I'm like, this is an ultra running podcast. So like, come on. So I always say, if you want to be on podcasts, first of all, show them that you actually did research on the show. Like, hey, I love the episode with X, Y, and Z, or hey, like I listened to this and it was awesome. And then 2, I think I can add value to your listeners because I can tell them how they can prevent blisters on their next run, because that's something that everybody comes up to. I'd love to do an interview on that if you're open to it. Boom.
I love that analogy.
So yeah, I know there's a lot of weird stuff in the ultra running space.
Anything you want to add to any of that?
Oh man. Well, I think the biggest thing is like, I say the hardest ultra marathon is running a business.
Oh,
By far. Right. Like, I've done 100-mile races. I'm training for a 250-mile race that I'm doing in May. Like, and it sounds absurd, but I think it's nothing compared to running a business.
Is that the Western States one? What's the big one?
I want to get into Western States. That's the big one. That's like my like
That's
life
the one
goal.
from Tahoe down to
Correct.
Yeah.
To Auburn. Yeah, that's what I want to do. The one that I'm training for is Cocodona 250. So it starts in Phoenix and goes straight up to Flagstaff, 250 miles. So that's what I'm training for. But I also run a business on the side as well. I do running coaching. Like I help athletes to finish their first or fifth ultra marathon. And so I'm also a business owner by night as well. And I can just say too that like that's been really fulfilling, but running a business is definitely harder than any ultra for sure. And so, but just like an ultra marathon, if you have your stuff documented for your crew who takes care of you during the race on how to keep you in shape, right? You also need to have your stuff documented inside your business to have your employees keep your business in shape. So there's a lot of parallels, but I think running a business is the hardest ultra marathon of all time.
With that, we're going to wrap it up. If anyone wants to get a hold of Joe, Chris, anyone at Trainual, really easy to find. Trainual. Like you said, it's train meets manual. So Trainual, and Joe, can't thank you enough for coming on today. I'm looking forward to having conversations offline.
Thanks so much, JJ. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow JJ Levinsky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in every Monday